Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. I am your host, MagMongoSlade. Today, we're going to talk about TNA Slammiversary from July the 20th, 2024. A show that is actually much better than previous efforts when it comes to TNA. This might be the best TNA pay-per-view that they've put on in about 3 or 4 years. It was literally that enjoyable. And we start with the main event, which was a 6-pack challenge for the TNA World Championship. Joe Hendry, Moose, Nick Nemeth, Frankie Kazarian, Josh Alexander, and Steve Maclin. The winner was Nick Nemeth, who won the world title. The booking in this match was actually very, very good. The action was so-so. I'm not really a big fan of like 90% of the roster in this match, but the booking of it was very solid. Steve Maclin was eliminated by Moose with a spear. The second person eliminated out of the entire match was Moose, who is the world champion. He was pinned by Joe Hendry with the standing ovation chokeslam. So this guarantees that there's going to be a new world champion, and there's still other people in the match. But even more than that, Joe Hendry is the one who pinned Moose. So Joe Hendry gets this amazing reaction going into the match. He's the most over person in the match. He's the one who pins the champion. Then, literally 60 seconds later or so, Josh Alexander kicks Joe Hendry in the nuts, hits him with the C4 spike, and pins him. The crowd is immediately shitting on the match. Immediately. You know, they're chanting bullshit. They're going hard on this. Josh Alexander is yelling about how he's the real heart and soul of TNA. And I was looking at this and I was like, okay, all right, I see where you're going. I see your vision. Even though I don't like Josh Alexander, I'm thinking Josh Alexander is going to win the match. And it's going to be Josh Alexander and Joe Hendry going forward, where Joe Hendry is going to beat Josh Alexander for the title. I see that. That's the good vision. And then Josh Alexander lost. And I was like, wait a second. Josh Alexander was eliminated by Nick Nemeth. It was a little while later, like 3 or 4 minutes later. That left Kazarian and Nemeth as the last two, with Nick Nemeth winning and going over. The crowd, honestly, was not that into Nick Nemeth winning. Clearly, they had all thrown their lot. They had all gambled on Joe Hendry. And when he was out, they really weren't that interested. Nick Nemeth winning the title is great, but it's probably like a month or two late. He probably should have beat Moose a month or two ago. It seemed to be Joe Hendry's time. He seemed to have all the momentum. And if you were going to beat him in this match, then he should have been the top contender coming out of it as the guy primarily chasing the title. Now it seems like they're going to book Joe Hendry to feud with Josh Alexander off title, while Nick Nemeth defends the title going forward. I heard some rumors that they're probably going to try to do Bound for Glory overseas, and that was the reason why Joe Hendry was likely going to be chasing the belts until Bound for Glory. I don't know how true that is. Bound for Glory is in October. I don't have any information to say that. I just, some stuff I saw on the internet. So it's probably a lie. But outside of Nemeth winning this match, I like the booking here. Joe Hendry was the guy everybody wants to see. Slammiversary is a big pay-per-view. You could have put the belt on him, but I like the idea of Josh Alexander turning heel and screwing Joe Hendry and taking the crowd out of it. The only problem I had was, one, Josh Alexander didn't win. Two, it happened a little too soon. Maybe should have let Kazarian get eliminated and then had Josh Alexander and Nemeth as the last two. That probably would have been a little bit better. You know, just space those things out a little bit. And then maybe had Josh Alexander cost Joe Hendry the title, which is also what I thought. That was my second option. I was like, okay, Moose is going to come back and cost Joe Hendry the title. That probably would have been good too. I knew Joe Hendry was not going to win. I had a pretty good, sense that Joe Hendry was not winning. They had built it up too much. they were teasing it too much. I knew they were going to swerve you. So I like the booking in terms of, hey, we're going to tease when it comes to Joe Hendry. He's finally getting in the main event, which is good. I don't know why they would do Nemeth and Hendry at Bound for Glory or whatever the next pay-per-view is, considering it's babyface versus babyface, unless they are going to consider turning Nemeth heel too. I don't know why they would do that. Just let Nemeth be the babyface. So I like this. Nemeth is a guy, I'm not complaining about him winning. You know, him putting over Moose at first was weird, but now he's got the title, and that's all fine. Joe Hendry, when it comes to him, they're doing the old Hulk Hogan. They're doing the Daniel Bryan. They're teasing it and pulling it away. Teasing it and pulling it away. And this is the first time they've done it. They've never got him this close to winning the world title before. So you can give him a pass on this. The crowd manipulation is really good, because now you've got the crowd into the product. You know, this is the biggest crowd they've had in 10 years, I've heard. They sold out like 4,500 seats, or 5,000 seats or whatever they said. So they're growing, at least at the pay-per-view level, at least in attendance, they're growing. So they got something here. There's no need for instant gratification. Just because Joe Hendry got hot from bouncing back and forth between TNA and NXT does not need that you need to go ahead and throw the belt on him right now. Sometimes, you know, wrestling commentators, they say you got to strike while the iron's hot. I get that. But sometimes you turn people into a fad when you do that. You know, there's a lot of chitter chatter about Joe Hendry on the internet. There's a lot of people who have turned against him. You know, as soon as he started making these NXT appearances, all the AEW fans are, you know, basically talking about him like he's not a good wrestler. He's just a personality. Oh, he's just like LA Knight. He can't really wrestle. He's just, you know, very charismatic, blah, blah, blah. They do that stuff all the time. Even if that was true, which it really isn't. But let's say that it's true. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. The in-ring part is the least interesting part. If you have the people invested in your product, you've done the right thing. And here in this show, you see that Joe Hendry has the audience in the palm of his hand. He's got them already. He can manipulate the audience. Now you can do stuff. And they're doing something right now that could potentially be interesting if they don't drop the ball. I don't know. Maybe they don't want to put the belt on him because he won't sign the contract and stay. And, you know, he wants to tease jumping to NXT. Maybe that's going to be another one of the things, but it doesn't really stop Jordynne Grace because she continues to win. But we'll talk about that in 1 second. Overall, though, the main event was fine. I'm not a big fan of Moose or Steve Macklin or Kazarian. Or Josh Alexander. So I really was only cool with Nemeth or Hendry. And they both got something out of this match. Something that is interesting. I want to see how they're going to book Nick Nemeth in the future as the champion. Knowing that Joe Hendry kind of got screwed. Is that going to be why Nemeth is going to give him a championship match and then, you know, Hendry wins it? I don't know. Good question. We'll see how it goes from here. Match 7, X Division title, Speedball Mike Bailey actually defeats Mustafa Ali. This match was good. It was incredibly overbooked in a very WWE way. And that makes sense because Mustafa Ali is involved. And of course, he's a guy who went to, spent a lot of years in WWE. So Speedball Mike Bailey is the hometown guy in Montreal. I thought maybe that Moose would win. And so this should have been the main event because they have been building this up for several weeks, probably several months at this point, as Mustafa Ali has been involved with Mike Bailey and Trent Seven, over the course of the last 2 or 3 months. So you get to the tail end of this match and Speedball Bailey hits his finish, the ultimate weapon, which is like the flipping knee drop or whatever. He gets a 3 count only to find out that Mustafa Ali's foot was on the ropes. So the crowd explodes, and the referee realizes what he's done, and he has to wave off the pin. They go back into some of the work. The referee ends up getting kicked. He gets bumped. Then the security gets involved. Mustafa Ali's security. They hold down Mike Bailey so he can hit 2 450 splashes. Then he finally wakes up the referee. He's got the 1, he's got the 2. Then a masked person pulls the referee out of the ring. And we found out that's Trent Seven. Trent Seven then beats up a lot of the security guys. And, some more chaos happens. And then we need a new referee. Mustafa Ali is yelling and waving for a new referee. And then it's Earl Hebner. Earl Hebner is coming to the ring to a wave of boos and "you screwed Brett," and he's snarling at the crowd and barely able to walk. I mean, because he's so old. He's like super old, bro. Anyway, Mustafa Ali puts Mike Bailey in the sharpshooter, and Earl Hebner is going to ring the bell, but his conscience won't let him. So he rethinks ringing the bell. Mustafa Ali lets the hold go to grab Earl Hebner and say, "You just need to ring the bell. That's all you need to do." From there, you had Mike Bailey. He recovered. He spin kicked Mustafa Ali a couple of times. Put Mustafa Ali in the sharpshooter. Mustafa Ali tapped out. And Speedball Mike Bailey wins the X Division Championship. The crowd is extremely happy. The redemption of Earl Hebner for screwing Brett back in 1997. All is right with the world. Again, I had to spend all that time with ref bumps and interference, and then the ref is pulled out of the ring, and then a new ref is introduced, and then we begin something else with, now this is a redemption arc for Earl Hebner. It's like, it's a little much. All right, it's a little much. And we started this whole thing with a false finish. The false finish is fine. I actually dug the false finish. It took the crowd out of it. But they started getting back into it because it didn't immediately flip to, oh, Mike Bailey lost. He put his foot on the ropes. And then, Mike Bailey was distracted and he turned around, got drop kicked or whatever and pinned. They didn't do that. So that was good. The only problem I had is once you introduce all of the other stuff, and it was necessary in terms of the Trent Seven stuff, because Trent Seven was already involved with this story. So him pulling the referee out of the ring to prevent Mustafa Ali from winning by cheating is good. But then you had the Earl Hebner stuff. And I think that part wasn't really necessary. That was just kind of like a wink and a nod to the Montreal screw job. And it's like, I don't think this match needed that. I think if you were going to do a rematch or something like that and then added that element into it, it might have been better. But putting it here made it feel really overbooked. But Mike Bailey wins the title in his hometown. It was the right thing to do. They had been holding off on this for a while. It seemed like they were never going to get here because it seemed like Mustafa Ali was just going to beat everybody. But Mike Bailey is the right person. In terms of guys that the fans can get behind and see as a big star in TNA, Mike Bailey is one of those guys. The sixth match, Jordynne Grace defeats Ash by elegance via pinfall with the Juggernaut driver. Okay, nothing too fancy about this. Ash by elegance, aka Dana Brooke, is still not great. She's not very good. Her reactions are very slow. She's not smooth. She thinks through things too much. You can see Jordynne Grace waiting for her to do stuff. They put all this time and effort. They've been building up this Ash by elegance versus Jordynne Grace match for at least 3 months. They even marred a little bit her championship match at NXT with this Ash by elegance stuff. And then Jordynne Grace won. So now you have to ask the question, what was the point of all of this? I thought Ash by elegance would at least win the belt. And I'm not saying that that's a good thing. I'm saying that you invested all of this time into this character and now you've just beaten her and you got nothing out of it. If you didn't get any extra exposure, She's not a better wrestler than she was before. Jordynne Grace winning is absolutely the right thing to do, considering the state of Dana Brooke. But to me, it was a waste of time. So, it is what it is. Whatever. Match 5. PCO defeats AJ Francis to win the Digital Media Championship with the moonsault. This match was a street fight. So there was a bunch of weapons and shit. PCO got thrown off the top of a table. Off the top rope through a table. It was insane. Rhino made an appearance. There was Sami Callihan and Rich Swann. They made an appearance. I hated this match. I don't like none of these people involved. I don't like none of these people. All these people need to go the way to Dodo Bird, all right? Steph DeLander came out after the match to propose to Pico, which is what Santino Marella called PCO. And he actually agreed to marry her. So we're going kind of far, kind of fast with this whole PCO, Steph DeLander thing. It's gross. There was another title on the line here for AJ Francis, but I don't remember what it was. I don't remember what company it represents, so it don't matter to me. But PCO now has 2 belts because he beat AJ Francis, who had 2 belts. And AJ Francis having 2 belts on your show is an embarrassment because that guy sucks. He's literally a walrus in the ring. Match 4, the Rascals defeat No Quarter Catch Crew. 4 guys from NXT on this show. This was a very good match. Physical, watchable. Doesn't really mean anything to the rest of this company, the rest of the show. But as a work rate match, it was fine. Match 3, Jake Something is defeated by Santana via the spin the block lariat. These two, I think they had gotten into it during the Slammiversary series or whatever to try to get into the main event. And these 2 guys had, bumped heads. It was a physical match. Pretty good. Again, not necessarily something that you need to see. It just kind of furthers Santana's momentum. You do get a sense with Jake Something and Hammerstone, who I'm going to talk about later, that they're the Will Hobbs and the Wardlow of TNA. It's like these guys have all the potential in the world. It's just the company refuses to recognize it. And I'm a big fan of Santana. I like Santana. I just think that Jake Something shouldn't be losing to literally everybody. If he was beating everybody and then losing to Santana, I wouldn't be too, trippy about that. But he pretty much doesn't ever win. Like, he never wins anything major. So it kind of sucks ass. So nothing was on the line, nothing was gained, nothing was lost. So if it was just a good match for a good match's sake. Number 2, the System. Brian Myers and Eddie Edwards are defeated by Austin Bay Club to win the tag team championship. So Austin and Bay win the tag team titles from beating the System. Praise God. I hate Brian Myers and Eddie Edwards. I hate them. I hate the System. They suck. The worst stable in wrestling. Easily the worst stable in wrestling. Without a shadow of a doubt. I've never seen 4 least talented people have all the championships in a company. There have never been 4 people with less talent who had all the titles. Never. Never. Ever. This is like the core being like all the champions in WWE or something. Somebody, somewhere. It's like nature is healing, But we got almost all of the belts off the System. They suck. It's time to throw a grenade in their locker room and spread them all across the country or something. They suck ass. Match number 1 on the main show. Matt Hardy defeats JDC, who is, I think, Johnny Curtis, a.k.a. Fandango. Who cares about this? Matt Hardy can barely move. The finish was a twist of fate off the top rope. Matt Hardy gave him 2 more twists of fate afterwards because JDC had injured Jeff Hardy. That's why Jeff wasn't here. The real reason Jeff wasn't there is because it was in Montreal and he couldn't travel. So they told the story that, Matt Hardy got revenge for Jeff. Perfectly fine. I'm okay with that. It was the first match on the show. It probably could have been on the pre-show. Now let's go to the pre-show because there was actually some interesting stuff that happened here. So match 1 on the pre-show, Giselle Shaw, Tasha Steelz, Zaya Brookside, and Fabi Apache wrestled in a fatal 4-way match to be the #1 contender for the Knockouts title. So Tasha Steelz won the match. The only good spot in this match was Giselle Shaw picking up the other 3 competitors and carrying them, which is a great sign of grown man strength. But Tasha Steelz won, which is probably not the best option. Tasha Steelz, come on. Let's be real. I don't think Tasha Steelz has any chance in hell of beating Jordynne Grace. And it's partially because Tasha Steelz is basically a jobber to the stars. You know, they're telling this story with not with Jordynne Grace, but with Giselle Shaw, about Giselle Shaw having left TNA due to frustration of losing the championship match, and now Giselle Shaw has to fight back. And it seemed like this was going to be that moment where they put Giselle Shaw over, and then Giselle Shaw was going to wrestle Jordynne Grace, but that didn't occur. So maybe they're trying to do a similar thing that they're doing with Joe Hendry with Giselle Shaw. I don't know, but I'm good on Giselle Shaw. I'm gonna take a big old pass, but I don't see Tasha Steelz or Zaya Brookside as competitors, and Fabi Apache is just showing up because they like to have some kind of surprise. And even though she was promoted, I believe. Anyway, the second match on the pre-show, Rich Swann was defeated by Kushida. Now, it was supposed to be Jonathan Gresham, who is literally an octopus now and spitting ink on people. But they said due to travel issues, Jonathan Gresham could not be here, which of course raises an eyebrow because his wife is here. You know, his wife is Jordynne Grace. She's here. Are they coming from different places? How did he miss his flights and she found hers? You know, I don't understand it, but I'm pretending to understand. Anyway, Kushida came out with a basket on his head. I thought that was odd. He took the basket off of his head, and it turns out that he had the markings on his face like Hakushi. He was wearing a white robe. He took the white robe off. He had the markings all over his chest too. So people started calling him Hakushida. So I thought that was very nice. It was very entertaining. Jinsei Sensaki, aka Hakushi from the WWE, and Kushida won the match with the hoverboard lock, even though I think he probably took too much damage in his new character. But I like the change. I want Kushida to change permanently from that Back to the Future stuff that he does. He's been doing that stuff for way too long. Way too long. I think it's time for him to do something else. And Rich Swann sucks, by the way. All right, so the third match on the pre-show. This was a long pre-show. Spitfire, Danny Luna, and Jody Threat were defeated by the Militia, which is Alicia Edwards and Masha Slamovich. So Masha Slamovich is probably the best women's wrestler in the United States, and I think she's Russian. All right, like legit. I've said this before. I think she's legitimately one of the best female wrestlers in the business. Why she's stuck in this tag team with this talentless hack and Alicia Edwards, I have no earthly idea. But Masha Slamovich on her own is very good. She should be the Knockouts champion right now. Remember, a year or two ago, they seemed to be building her up with an undefeated streak, and then they just had her lose to Jordynne Grace, or whomever the champion was at the time. It might have been Deonna Purrazzo, if I remember correctly. I don't remember. And she just fell by the wayside. And she ended up with a tag team with Killer Kelly. And then she did that for a long time. And now she's just in this tag team with Alicia Edwards. Alicia Edwards has no talent. She has no skill. She has no ability. She sucks. But they won with the Steiner Brothers finisher, with the Bulldog, the elevated Bulldog, which I thought, okay, that was nice. That's a nice homage anyway. But Masha Slamovich might be one of the best female wrestlers in the country, is forced to team with one of the worst, and then be featured on the pre-show. Meanwhile, Dana Brooke, who's another one of the worst wrestlers in the country, gets a featured match on the main card. I don't get this. I don't understand it. And one thing I also don't understand is who would book Eric Young to beat Hammerstone, because that's top tier stupidity. And I really didn't want to watch the show after I saw that. I said to myself, this company deserves to just bleed out Like, just slit your wrist and bleed out in the bathtub. If you're booking Eric Young to win matches over young guys like Hammerstone in 2024, just cut your wrist and bleed out in the bathtub. You know, it's over. But the show was better than I thought it would be. It cleared up a lot of the problems that I usually have when it comes to TNA, which is 1, booking, 2, talent. All right, the talent on this show was much better than usual. Part of that is not really, you know, the NXT thing, but it helps. Like, having a match with Jake something in it and Santana, that helps. You know, the Rascals being there helps. Dempsey and Tavion Heights and Miles Bourne, that helps. Yes, you have bums like PCO and AJ Francis and Johnny Curtis, aka Fandango, and Matt Hardy, who is barely mobile. You sure you have Moose on the card, but Moose is in a match with Nick Nemeth and Joe Hendry. Same thing you can say with Josh Alexander, Kazarian, and Steve Macklin. The bums, you shoved them all in one match or 2 matches, and then I can enjoy the rest of it. You know, even though I don't like Ash by Elegance, she was in there with Jordan Grace, so that was fine. Mustafa Ali and Speedball Bailey was probably the best match on the show, easily. But all the other matches had decent talent in it, you know, or at least they booked the people I don't like to lose, so it was okay. You know, so they fixed the booking, so the booking is interesting. There's a reason to watch the rest of the shows, because now you want to see what's going to happen with Joe Hendry, what's going to happen with Nick Nemeth. They switched almost all the titles. All the titles except one have been switched. So there's interesting, basically an opportunity to reboot. There were some teases of there was going to be some surprises here and all this kind of stuff. None of that happened. The only surprise was Earl Hebner, really. So people should stop saying there's going to be surprises, because people start thinking, okay, oh, somebody's going to show up, when that's not the case. Moose is very happy with the WWE/TNA that collaboration. He's very happy with the collaboration. A lot of other people are too. Jordan Grace is ecstatic about it. A lot of the AEW fans are not. They look at it and like, oh, these people are bums. Izzy Dame and all these people suck. It's like, well, they're bringing new talent in to TNA, and that's actually creating more opportunities. Like, a lot of people are look at the ABC title switch and say, oh, okay, so now the ABC can do something with Axiom and Nathan Fraser, and that could be fun, because, you know, 2 fast-paced tag teams, that could be fun. You know, it's booking for interesting things in the future, moving away from some of these bums that they've had, like, you know, the system, you know, but we're stuck in this miasma of AJ Francis and PCO. Like, they both won't go away at the same time. So I guess we okay, at least stuck with them. But the talent has improved. The booking has improved. Much better booking than it used to be. You know, in the Scott D'Amore days, Josh Alexander probably would have won this match and just would have beat everybody in it, because he'd have been invincible or something like that. But doing things that are interesting can make even boring, sluggish talent okay to deal with. So let me know what you guys think. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.
Old non-aggression. Once that lesson sets in, you'll see a session, but you got an affection for no progression, regression.